Remember Beth by Don Deserut. John pulled his mask out of his coat pocket and slipped it on. But as soon as he entered the cafe, his glasses fogged up, so he took those off and dropped them into his overcoat pocket. Then he squirted sanitizer on his hands from the big, large dispenser kept just inside the door. And the patron was on his way out. John stepped back to give him room, 6 feet, just like the regulations said. He smiled to himself how ordinary this all felt now. Annoying, but ordinary. Masks, physical distancing, hand sanitizers, what was they called it? The new normal. New it was. Normal, not so much. He looked around the cafe. Without his glasses, he couldn't see people's faces, not well anyway. But over in the corner, someone was waving. Henry, no doubt, his best friend, the guy he'd known since ninth grade. This was their Saturday morning routine. Meet at Mom's Grill for bacon and eggs and drink way too much coffee. Mom's Grill was an institution in Springvale, although it was just called Hannah's back in the day. Hannah's was where he, Henry, and their pals would come after school for thick milkshakes and greasy fries. But when Hannah died, the place closed. Then about 5 years ago, Hannah's daughter reopened it under its new name, Mom's Grill. It was Henry's idea to start going back. He called John one day and said, "Let's get the old gang together and meet at Hannah's, or whatever she calls it now." John liked the idea. "Next Saturday at 9 o'clock," said Henry. "Be there or be square." John walked in that first time and saw Henry sitting by himself at the head of the table that could seat 8. "Am I the first?" he asked. "First and last," replied Henry. "What?" "You're the only one, besides me, of course." "Well, that's too bad," said John, pulling out a chair and taking his seat. "Everyone else busy?" "There's no one else, John. There's just us." "Seriously?" "Seriously. I went through the old yearbook. Looked up every name. My granddaughter Marla helped me do the computer searching stuff. I know we didn't have a big graduating class, but I don't know. I thought there were more of us." "They're not all dead?" No. But, well, some actually are," said Henry, looking down at the table. "Billy," he then said, looking back up, raising his eyebrows. "Billy? Billy the Jock? Dead? How?" "Hard, I think." "And Mabel?" "Mabel," said John. "Who's Mabel?" "Sorry, not Mabel," said Henry. "Martha." "Martha? How?" "Cancer." "Wow." "Yeah, wow." "What about the others?" "They all moved away, I guess, one time or another." Said John. "Like ships passing in the night." "What ships?" said Henry. "The old gang. We knew them briefly, and now we'll likely never see them again. They're like ships that pass in the night." "John, sometimes you worry me." "Well, I'm here," said John. "Whoop-de-ding," said Henry. So that's how it started. The Springvale High Class of 74 breakfast reunion. John and Henry. Today, on this Saturday, John Henry didn't have a lot to say. The pandemic was taking its toll. It wasn't just people getting sick, or even people dying, which was bad enough. It was the sheer tedium of trying to stay safe, trying to follow the rules, and trying to keep some modicum of hope that it would soon be over, or be over this year anyway, or would just eventually, while they still had some life left to enjoy, be over. They both adjusted pretty well, actually, to this new normal, but fatigue, it was setting in. At first, the pandemic was all they spoke of, the controversies, the crazy conspiracy theories, the government's response. But when the vaccines started rolling out, they spoke of the vaccines. They spoke of the vaccines the way they used to speak of their favorite horses in the Gold Cup and Saucer race. "I like Pfizer," declared Henry. "Clinical trials have been great." "My money's on Moderna," countered John. "Might have started off slow, but it's really picking up the pace." Now they were just tired of the whole thing, of everything. So they still met for their bacon and eggs. They still drank too much coffee, but they didn't say much. Just the usual routine. "Hi, Henry." "What?" I said. "Oh, wait, I'm still wearing my mask." "Can't hear a thing and you're wearing that mask." "You're not as funny as you think you are, Henry." "What?" Today, Henry was reading a local paper, the Journal. He carefully folded it over and sent it over to John. "Hey, John." "What?" you remember Beth? Asked Henry. Who? Beth. Beth McLean. Nope. Sure you do. Okay, said John. Sure I do. No, I'm serious. John sighed. I do not remember your friend Beth whatever. Not my friend, yours. Mine. Beth McLean. She was a year behind us in high school. I think she sat next to you in history. John's stomach lurched. That was more than 45 years ago. My coffee's cold, said John. Where's the waitress? Henry grabbed the paper he had folded and waved it under John's nose. Then he pulled the paper back and, adjusting his glasses, read out the headline. Beth McLean surprised at grocery store shortages. Then he looked over the top of his glasses at John. What do you say to that? That's a newspaper story? Asked John. Yes, John. Says right here. Henry tapped the newspaper. People are still hoarding all sorts of stuff. Flour, potatoes, even toilet paper. What kind of bug do you think COVID is? Asked John, shaking his head. I know, said Henry. Anyway, I guess the paper wanted to do a story on the shortages. So they went to Sobeys, interviewed people. One was Beth McLean. If it's the same Beth, then I guess she's back. I didn't realize she had left. Oh, come on, said Henry. You must remember. It was a big deal back in school. One day she was there, the next day she wasn't. All sorts of stories while she left. If you say so, said John, looking around. Oh, where's that waitress? Didn't she have a crush on you or something? Who, the waitress? No, Beth. Beth. Not that I knew. Fine, be like that. Henry took a sip of his coffee. He made a face. Your coffee cold too? Asked John. Yep, answered Henry. He managed to get the waitress's attention, and she hurried over with a pot of coffee. You know what, said Henry, as the waitress replenished both their coffees. We should give Beth a call. What? Call her. Says here she just moved back from Milton. That's near Toronto, right? John shrugged. Guess her mother's not well, continued Henry. Geez, your mum'd be 90 of a day. He put the paper down. She might like to reconnect with people from school, us, for example. Beth's mom? Beth. She wouldn't remember us. I think she'd remember you. Henry, that was a long, long time ago. Oh, and what was a long, long time ago, John? High school, and whatever those silly stories were. So all the more reason to reconnect. Back in his apartment, John powered up his computer. Where to start? Facebook? Okay, Facebook. His niece convinced him to join, so she could share pictures of his grandnephews, she said. Still, he hated Facebook. At least that's what he told Henry. But for some reason, he checked it every day, sometimes several times a day. He typed in her name, Bethmclean. Several Beth McLeans popped up, but none in Milton or Springvale for that matter. Maybe he was spelling McLean wrong, so he tried MacLean and even McLean. Nothing, at least not anyone who would fit the bill. He sat back in his chair. Beth, after all these years, why was she back? Would she try to contact him? What would he say? Come on, that was 47 years ago. Would 47 years make a difference? He didn't know. He didn't want to see her. Was she still as strange as she was in high school? Because she was strange. Well, sort of, anyway. Cute, too. Actually, better than cute. Not that he really noticed, of course. Oh, she probably didn't age well. Few did. He was always surprised when someone from his old high school would post a picture of themselves on Facebook. Everyone was getting so old and so fast. Well, he was one to talk. How much air do you have left? If Facebook wasn't helping, maybe a simple Google search would. He tried Beth McLean and Milton. Okay, that picked up a few hits, more than a few. Maybe she went to university. If she did, she'd have graduated in 1978. No, 1979. So he tried that. First page of entries was not promising. But then John saw something. Beth McLean graduated from St. Peter's University, Bachelor of Business in 1979. Huh, thought John. He almost went to St. Peter's. He applied and was accepted. Was all set to go, but then, well, he had a change of heart. He'd go next year. or maybe the next. So he started working at the mill, just like his dad. The graduation list from St. Peter's also said that Beth McLean won the Hayden Prize for highest overall average in the business program. Well, that's impressive. Hayden, that was odd too. Hayden Enterprises was the company that bought the mill where he had worked. It was 35 years ago. He had just moved up to the sales division. People were so worried that the new owners from Ontario would lay everyone off. Well, there were layoffs, but he managed to keep his job. So he tried searching for Beth McLean and Hayden Enterprises. Huh, there she was. Beth McLean, promoted to Director of Marketing, 1988. And he was still in sales in 1988, also working for Hayden. Strange he'd never come across her name. What else? She was a speaker at a big sales convention in Toronto, 1995. His boss wanted to attend that meeting. She said it might help him regain his enthusiasm. True, he'd lost interest in his job. But going all the way to Toronto, well, it was just a lot of bother. For what? So he declined. So it went. As John continued to search, he lost count of the number of near misses, times when he and Beth almost crossed paths. It was more than eerie, it was downright spooky. And now she was back here in Springvale. John thought back to that day in high school, the day Beth left. He'd first noticed Beth when the new school year started. He was now in grade 12. He thought that once he'd reached 12th grade, he'd feel different, more confident, less worried about what people thought or said. But that wasn't the case. Beth was in grade 11. Her family had just moved to Springvale from Ontario. As a new girl, she was the subject of much curiosity. It didn't help that she dressed differently than the other girls. She wore brightly colored striped leggings, skirts with sequin designs, bright pink sweaters. Nor did it help that one day she started coming to school carrying a satchel, a large satchel, almost suitcase size. No one in high school carried a satchel. It just wasn't cool. Beth ended up sitting beside him in history class. She would smile at him when he came in late, which was often. She'd pass him notes in class. One asked him whether he had a car, another about whether he'd ever been on a train. One time she passed him a note that read, "I do not believe that we are but ships that pass in the night." Silly stuff, he thought then. What did that even mean? He and Henry walked down the hall together on their way to geography class. "She likes you, you know." "Who does?" said John. "That new girl," said Henry. "The weird one. The one with the suitcase or whatever that thing she drags around is." "She does not." "Yes, she does. She carries it everywhere." "No, I mean she doesn't like me." "Okay, she doesn't like you." "What do you think she does?" asked John. Henry just shook his head. John had wondered about that satchel, though. What could she have in there? Too big for just books. So back then he decided it was just gym stuff. Although now, 47 years later, he realized that he should have noticed that she carried it every day. He should have realized that you don't carry your gym stuff with you every day. On that day, the day she left, he saw her at her locker. But she wasn't putting stuff in her locker. She was taking stuff out of her locker. Lots of stuff, lots of clothes. He went over to see what was going on. "Hey," he said. But she didn't answer. She just kept stuffing that huge satchel with clothes, socks, underwear, sweatpants, t-shirts, sweaters. "Beth, what are you doing?" he finally asked her. She turned and looked at him. She'd been crying. "Can't say a word." "But what?" he asked. "About this." "Okay, but what is this?" "My stuff, my clothes. I'm taking them from home a bit at a time and leaving them here." "What? Why?" "So he won't notice." "Beth, you're not making any sense. Who?" "My stepfather. Who do you think?" "I still don't get it." "I'm leaving, okay? I'm leaving. I'm getting out of here. Out of town. I'm going away. I don't want anyone coming after me. I just need to get away, far away." "Something I said," joked John. Beth burst into tears, and she threw herself at John, hugging him tightly around his neck. John didn't know what to do. He tried to look around to see if anyone was watching, but Beth's tight grip prevented him from turning his head. He wondered if he should hug her back. He wasn't sure. If he did, what would she think? Would she think he was now going to help her? Would he help her? He didn't even know what she was going to do, or why. Beth kept neutral, so he let his arms hang limply by the side. Beth's sobbing slowly subsided. Finally, she pulled away. She retrieved a tissue from her jeans pocket and dabbed her eyes. Sorry, she whispered. That's okay, he said, laughing. Whatever's bugging you, I'm sure will all turn out okay. It's probably nothing. You didn't hear a word I said, did you? She said, still whispering. John shrugged. Whatever, he said. Beth took a step back and looked at John. John never forgot that look. I shrugged, he now remembered with horror. I shrugged. How could I have just shrugged? That's when the telephone rang. John hesitated before picking it up, but he knew. He just knew. Hello, he said, clearing his throat. John? Hi, it's Beth. Beth McLean. Do you remember me? I do, he said. I certainly do.